Okay, so this is part 2 of stories, right? And so here's the thing, right? So they're telling my husband they think they have to put me in a medically induced coma, just as a quick recap from the very end of part 1, right? And so at this point, I'm already starting to come to. He said it took about, by the time they told him that they were going to have to put me in this medically induced coma, they had to almost turn right back around and say, you know what? She's actually waking up on her own. Listen, I'm not telling you I'm strong, but just don't mess with me, okay? Anywho, now this is my story, so I'm sharing it and I'm telling it because honestly speaking, any other time that I share this story, I feel like I have to abbreviate it because I don't want to take up people's time with it because I feel like it's just I'm insignificant when it really comes down to it. But let's get back to the story because I'll get into the rest of that part in a minute. Now, here's the thing, right? So I'm starting to wake up. Everything is good. And all I can tell you is I had this sense of extreme euphoria. I mean, euphoria. Like I was so grateful to be alive because I knew everything in me told me that I was going to die. Everything in me told me that that was going to be my last day here on this planet and that my husband would now be a widow having to raise 4 daughters on his own, 2 of which were newborn preemie twins, right? Just think about that for a moment because this is my truth. This is my story. This is what I've lived. And if you need evidence, I can provide the documentation, right? So anyway, I'm so euphoric. I'm so ecstatic for having lived, but now I have to go into this survival, right? Because now I have to start healing from everything. I don't even get an opportunity to meet the twins. Let's say I had them at 7 o'clock in the morning. I met them at 9 o'clock at night, right? Because I was having to wake up, having to make sure that they could take the tube out of my throat, all of these different types of things. And again, I couldn't barely even walk. I was swollen from neck down. I don't know why my head wasn't swollen. My face wasn't swollen. Thank God for picture's sake, right? But if you look at the pictures of my delivery, where I'm holding my newborn twins, I am completely swollen. This was not something that I went into the hospital with. This wasn't something that I had, any types of preeclampsia or swelling or anything like that. No, this was a result of the horrendous trauma that I had just experienced. My body was trying to recover, right? So I could barely walk. My legs felt like tree trunks. They were so huge. I couldn't use the bathroom. I had to use a bedpan, all of these different types of things. All in all, I ended up having to have 2 blood transfusions. I lost 8 liters of blood in total. 8 liters. Now, you can Google it, but the human body doesn't even have 8 liters of blood. You want to know why I lost 8 liters of blood? Now, I'm about to flip this on you a little bit because the only reason I had that much blood to even lose in the first place was because of the twins, right? That saved me. I mean, of course, it begs to be questioned and the argument can be made that I wouldn't have been in that position or circumstance had it not been for the twins. But I choose to look at the brighter side of things because they were my saviors in that moment because God only knows what else could have happened, what trauma I was supposed to meet in that moment had I not even been pregnant with them, right? Maybe the traumatic situation would have been a car accident that I would not have survived. But only God knows that. So I'm not here to question it. I'm just telling you my side of the story, my experience, right? The other way that they saved me is that because of the fact that it was twins, that was the reason I was in the OR to have that instant emergency surgery that saved my life. Only because it was twins. Remember when I told you, when you have the twin pregnancy, at least in Chicago, you're automatically going to the OR just in case. Now, another side note that I didn't share was that I had been feeling all the way up to through my pregnancy that something was going to happen during delivery. Now I just, everybody kept saying, you're just nervous. Everybody goes through that, every pregnant mother or all those types of things. And I kept hearing all these stories about women who had one baby naturally and then had to have a cesarean section for the second. And that was how I saw myself. But little did I know, the vision was almost there, but not quite. I was able to deliver both babies naturally, and the secondary surgery came in to save my life, right? That was the hysterectomy. And another side note, which now I kind of find like dark entertainment anytime someone asks if I'm going to try for a boy or if I'm going to have another baby. Because here's a life lesson, you guys. Don't ask anybody that question. Because if you ask me, I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable with my truth. I'm going to tell you, oh, you know what? I can't have any more babies because I had to have an emergency hysterectomy after hemorrhaging 8 liters of blood in my last delivery. Yeah, I'm real gem at parties, right? But let that be a lesson, right? Anyway, let's get back to the story. There's so much to it. I could share on and on. This will go into part 5 and 6 and all those types of things. But the bottom line is, that was my delivery story. That was my survival. That was my emergency surgery story. That was my hemorrhage story. Now, as far as the recovery aspect, now listen, I was in the hospital for 13 days. I had over 30 stitches down my torso. I had to have a subsequent surgery because the fact that I had to have that emergency hysterectomy compiled with the fact that I was huge, y'all. I was all baby, all belly. I ended up with a 13 centimeter wide hernia. And I had to have that repaired, but it took me about 8 months to get that repair done because I was terrified of hospitals. You couldn't tell me anytime I stubbed my toe I wasn't going to die, because guess what? I went into that hospital with minor labor pains. I knew I was going to have 2 babies. I did not expect to be fighting for my life. And that's just how it works though, right? Now let's get back to the main subject at hand, because don't think I forgot about the topic of the week, which is stories or story. It doesn't matter. The reason I shared that story with you is because it's my truth. It's a hard truth to swallow. A lot of people can't listen to that story. A lot of people have different feelings and responses to it. Wow, you're so strong. Oh my God, I couldn't believe that happened. Wow, I could never go through that. All of these different responses and reactions, which are all valid, which are all true, right? Some people look at me as a victim. Some people look at me as a heroine of my own situation and circumstance. But the reason I share all of this with you is not to get props or not even to get an actual response. It's to remind you that you too have stories. You have at least one story that is just as huge, if not even bigger. But this isn't an opportunity for comparison. The reason I'm putting all of this out there to you, the reason why I want to encourage that notion of story or stories, is so that you can go on and tell and share your truth. Because the world needs to hear it. There are some women out there right now who, because when it comes to placental abruption or accreta and all of those types of things, they're usually diagnosed early in pregnancy. They're usually able to be seen up front. And then that way they can prepare however they would prepare. I don't know, because I didn't experience that. But there's someone who might be listening right now, or maybe somebody that you know who is about to go through this, who can understand and see that survival is possible. Sure, I didn't have the best story. Sure, I didn't have the best circumstance or experience or anything like that, but I survived. Not only did I survive, but I am thriving. I am thriving. Yes, it was a process to get here, but it is possible. Your story and your stories are very important. No longer are we in the place and space where we have to hide our truths for the comfort of others. Now, I'm not saying you need to do what I do and break up all parties and tell your story about the hemorrhage or when you crapped your pants or whatever it is, right? I'm not saying you have to do that. You don't have to do like me. You don't have to be like me. Be like you. But what I am trying to express to you is that everyone does have a story that is worth telling. Don't feel like we have to live in those old school mentality ways of what happens in the house stays in the house. That is a toxic pattern. Those are toxic behaviors. Another story of mine is one of my daughters will share something that I did to her that I am ashamed of. Now, it's not like major abuse or anything like that, but it makes me cringe at myself every time she tells a story. But you know what I have to do? I force myself to listen. I force myself to hear her out, and I do not try to diminish what she says. Because her experience is her experience and her truth is her truth. The only thing I can do is change my behavior from that point and make sure that it never happens again. Make her feel comfortable and confident in knowing that she is in a safe place to share her story. Because then down the road, if anything were to happen, or if she had any experience that needed to be shared, she would have the confidence to share it because she had already been allowed to do so. Now, again, not everyone has that parent that's going to support them sharing things that make them feel cringy or make them feel ashamed or embarrassed. Some people are going to try to rewrite history through their own lens because your truth makes them feel uncomfortable. Share it anyway. Share it anyway. Even if it means just going to a counselor and getting those words out there. Share it anyway. But you know what? I'm not going to go on and on because I'm going to get cut off again. And I don't want to turn this into a 3-parter. But the bottom line is this. Share your truth. Share your stories. Because not only is there someone out there that needs your story of survival, your story of experience, your story of wisdom in order to move on, is someone out there that is a reflection of you. Your past is somebody's present. And so give it to them as a gift to know that thriving is possible. You know what? I'm not going to go on and on because I don't want to confuse you anymore, but just share your stories. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down because even if you just share it with me, I'd love to hear it. So that's it for now. Bye-bye. And as always, when this message resonates, that means it's for you. And if not, that's cool too. Just keep it pushing. Either way, thanks for listening. And I hope you're having the best day ever. Until next time, you know the vibes. Peace and happy healing.